did after coming from Judea, Galilee. The author of the Gospel of John starts off by giving the sign numbers. The first one is the wedding in Cana in Galilee. That's the first sign. Well, remember that. And then there's the second sign, the healing of the royal official's son. And after 2, he stops numbering. And it just sort of fades out. And if you Google this, you'll see that there's 7 signs in the Gospel of John, or 12 signs. But he tells a lot more. Feeding of the multitude in the desert by the Lake of Tiberias. Walking on the water. Healing a person that's been born blind from the moment of his birth. And raising his friend from the dead. But not only does the writer give up numbering them, he gives up saying that they're complete. He says there are many other signs that are written in this book, and these are written so that you may believe and have life in his name. And then at the very end, he thinks of another one. Breakfast on the beach. And then he says, if every one of these things were written down, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that would be written. The wonderful shrug at the end. All these signs. So, this seminary community that we live in day in and day out, and then we're in week 9, I think. This seminary community is a sign-rich environment. So full of signs. I mean, we're liturgical people, so we have these liturgical events that we name and we focus on. We celebrate our history. Last week, for example, we had the Harvey Lecture in memory of the deceased Dean Harvey that everyone loved and got so tired of being a dean that he died in office. And we heard the amazing Uriah Love Parrish speak about, she didn't speak about climate change, she assumed climate change. She spoke about how Christians can live into the reality of place and how Christians can do the repentance necessary and live within limits to heal creation. She was amazing. We celebrated the ministry and the martyrdom of Oscar Romero. And it was we remembered his death and we celebrated Easter right here in this place. And Victoria preached the most powerful homily. And because it was a resurrection service, we followed it by food, music, and dance. Ultimate sign of the resurrection. And on Friday, we celebrated the Annunciation of God to Mary of Galilee with a feathery angel. I don't know if there were feathers. I don't know if that angel had feathers. But we had poetry and art and music and symbol. Another sign. 3 liturgical signs in 1 week, and that's not including all the other signs that happen in the classroom. Unorchestrated, non-liturgical things that happen in the classroom. In meetings, even in meetings where collegial bonds of relationship are strengthened through honesty, risk, and struggle. In all these signs in this sign-rich environment, we see God is recreating. God is making things new, doing new things, as the prophet Isaiah preaches in that beautiful vision in Isaiah 65. God's doing new things with the old things, taking, making, and remaking, renewing things. And the new things that God is doing share a shape. They're share a shape of creating, unrolling the heavens and the earth, setting the borders between land and the sea, its own appointed limits keep that sea has to stay where it's supposed to be. The pattern of making a path through the water, through the desert, through the Galilean countryside. Letting people go out on that path, go home, return home, and a child brought to life. All these patterns we hear over and over again. And these signs of resurrection look like freedom, like new life, like reconciliation, like that lion eating straw, like the ox. Like the days of a tree shall my people be. So beautiful. Yes. Now, this new heavens, this new earth is not fully seen. And there are obstacles that get in the way of our path. And there are losses and grief and deaths that we have to name as well. And one I want to name right now, even in this Easter sermon in the middle of Lent, and that's the public hurting of LGBTQ people in the media and by politicians. I just opened the Austin American Statesman, and it said LGBTQ books taken from libraries. And I thought, that hurts. That really hurts. That's saying people don't love me. People don't accept me. People don't want me. They don't want my books in the library with their kids. And I want to name that as a really hurtful example of sin that we are just facing right now. And it's being used and it's being weaponized, but that hurts. And I'm sorry, and this community is really sorry for that headline and for these things that are happening. In this sign-rich environment, in this community, we practice naming sin as much as we practice seeing signs. We practice naming these signs, and we practice drawing them out with our imagination and discerning together what these signs mean. Christian tradition, Christian practice orients us to this kind of noticing, this kind of seeing, this kind of interpreting. And we mold our attention in this direction of seeing signs of resurrection. We've all been nourished with Genesis and Isaiah and Revelation and with the history of martyrs and saints like Oscar Romero. And this is what we see. We don't see a never-ending cycle of doom. We see life coming out of death and a new heavens and a new earth promised. We just practice that way of seeing. It's so different than other ways to see. And to look at other ways to see, just read editorial pages or social media. We practice this way to see. And what we see while we anticipate this new heavens and new earth that we glimpse in all these signs around us, what we see is the new heavens, the new earth are going to look a lot like this heaven and this earth, but deeper, but new. The lions, the oxes, the sea and the land, the people in relationship with one another, life coming out of death. It's going to look beautiful. It's going to look like Muriel of Parish's farm. It's going to be a richer, newer, renewed, new heavens and new earth. This is an Easter sermon in the middle of Lent. Because our readings call us to this attention to signs, to interpreting their meaning, to discerning them in community, and to sharing and celebrating them right here together. Amen.
Amen.